He tapped his glass, held the mic with that easy grin he uses at work, and said, "Don't worry, I know how to write vows." "I've been practicing with someone who actually listens." The room laughed. I felt it like a hand on the back of my neck, and still I kept my face neutral, my shoulders loose, my smile correct. I smiled like I agreed while everything inside me shifted. Comment your city, subscribe, and hit the bell. The candlelight made everyone look kinder than they were. The smell of brown butter and rosemary hung under the skylights, and the waiter standing behind me whispered, "Excuse me," as if whispering made it invisible. Across the table, my husband didn't meet my eyes. He took the applause like a dog takes a treat. People went back to their beef and plated Brussels sprouts. I folded my napkin as if my hands had training and slid it onto my lap. Nothing needed saying in that room. The joke did its job. The open loop in my chest did the rest. Back then, I still believed effort would earn respect. I come from a family that fixed things. The hinge, the budget, the fight you don't want to call a fight. I met him over a leaky faucet in my first apartment. He volunteered to help in the complex group chat and showed up with a toolbox and a sleeve of sarcasm. We both loved loud coffee shops and quiet mornings. He said he fell in love with how I label the pantry and the way my hair smells like laundry and vanilla. We made dinners that tasted like growing up chicken cutlets, grocery store wine, the mint plant on the windowsill that never died. I tracked our expenses in a spreadsheet color-coded like a lesson plan and stitched together weekends with friends and long walks and errands that felt like rituals. The ordinary is easy to love when you think it's permanent. He kept a notebook of bad jokes and playlists and watched for my cold hands to hold. I kept extra napkins in the glove box because he refuses to learn. Our fights were the kind that end with both people wanting to fold laundry in the same room without talking. We paid off my student loan in a year because we ate the kind of dinners you eat when you're rebuilding something. I thought competence was a love language we both spoke. The first shift arrived in the smallest outfit, a phone call that cut out. I was loading the dishwasher, which was humming, and the kitchen light buzzed in a way only I hear. He had texted, running late, on a call, and I put my phone face down, the way we agreed. It rang anyway, his face on the screen. I answered and heard his voice soft and lit from inside. "I promise to love you in loud rooms and quiet mornings," he said, and then a pause, and then her laugh, not mine. He said a name that wasn't mine. He breathed like somebody rehearsing. I didn't speak. I didn't hang up. I placed that moment where I keep things I can and know. The garbage disposal chewed the lemon peel in my hand. The counter's cool stone under my palm kept me steady. When he came home, I asked if his call went okay. He said something about a project, a client, the usual. I said, "Okay." I packed that too. Our warmth was real enough to hurt later. Sunday pancakes I made in the cast iron that needs a particular kind of heat. The way he put his arm across my waist when morning light hit the blinds and made the bedroom look striped. We had a bench by the front door where his shoes learned to be tamed. We sang badly to 70s songs when we cleaned, danced in socks on wood floors, so slippery someone was going to get hurt. He taught me to drink the good coffee on Mondays. I taught him to iron his shirts on Sunday night and call it forethought. We built quiet rituals that made me feel like I lived inside a promise we both signed. I didn't realize how much those quiet rituals would cost later. I didn't tell it all at once. It unstitched. He started forgetting the grocery list, but bought extra bottles for other people. He rolled his eyes when I suggested a budget meeting and said I should live a little. He called me Mom in front of friends when I reminded him about the car insurance renewal. "She's the CFO," he'd say, and everyone would laugh. He charged a hotel bar in a city he wasn't in for work. He said it was a shared card error, and I let the bank reverse it without asking too many questions. He started polishing a story about our life that looked better with me in soft focus. I began writing it down, at first because I needed to remember if I was making it up. The call log, the charges that didn't match the calendar, the raising and lowering of voices that happened inside his face more than outside, the trips added last minute, the way he started using phrases that weren't ours. My person about someone else in a story he labeled harmless. I took pictures of the arrangement of glasses in the cabinet before he had friends over. I tucked the audio of that accidentally shared rehearsal into a folder I named for something else. It's funny how imbalance hides in everyday chores until it doesn't. He bought a suit that cost more than our rent used to be and said it was for a thing. He started asking me to tone down the beige when we went out, which is something only a person who never watched me build this home would say. He got louder when other people were around and softer when it was just me and the hum of the refrigerator. I planned our anniversary weekend and watched him scan the room like he was missing a meeting. He told a story at a dinner with my parents that I told him in confidence. And when I flinched, he squeezed my knee under the table like I should be grateful for the attention. The room went still on a Thursday, his team's celebration at a restaurant that thinks dim lighting hides sharp edges. He toasted to growth and turned to me as if he owned the stage. She taught me to be a better man, he said, and I braced for tenderness. Which is why she'd be fine when I retire from being one. Laughter loud and mean bounced off the concrete walls. Mine didn't join it. Their laughter finished the sentence I'd been avoiding. I excused myself to the restroom, washed my hands longer than necessary, and watched the foam slide down the sink like it had a purpose. In the mirror, my face looked like I owed it respect. When I came back, he was mid-story, building himself taller with my bricks. I made a decision so small it wouldn't have made a sound if it had been anything else. Then, like any good builder, I prepared the site. I didn't argue on the drive home. I asked if he had fun. He said something about network and opportunity, and I said, like a person agreeing with the idea of gravity. The house smelled like the candle I only light when I need a room to change its mind. I set my phone on Do Not Disturb and gathered what I already had. The call that wasn't tea for me, the receipt that wasn't for us, the texts that told their own story if you read them as if they were not lies. I made a list, not of grievances, but of facts. He fell asleep with the TV still murmuring about teams and points and highlights. I stood at the foot of the bed and felt the weight of a life I kept ironing flat. By morning, everything would be exactly where it belonged. I woke before the sun, the kitchen floor cool through my socks, and made coffee I didn't drink. I opened a fresh folder on my laptop and named it the way lawyers do when they mean business. Bank statements, color-coded. Screenshots of charges that slept under other names. The transcript of that rehearsal call, time-stamped, my voice absent. The photos with missing context that make a new kind of sense when you've learned to read. I called the bank and asked them to remove him as an authorized user on my personal savings, which I'd funded quietly with freelance income he thinks was cute. Of course, the woman said, her voice like a clean line drawn across a page. I changed the locks on the filing cabinet, which is a sentence that shouldn't have to exist. I exported our shared calendar and highlighted the gaps where his life drifted off the grid. I took a mugshot of the drawer where he keeps anything important and cataloged it. I packed a go bag with enough to be gone for 2 nights without asking anyone permission. Toothbrush, charger, the good jeans, the sweater that feels like an apology you don't have to make. I reached out to a lawyer whose card I'd kept from a friend's divorce. Not because I wanted this, but because I am the kind of person who doesn't let want be the only deciding force. She answered and said, "Tell me in facts," and I did. She said, "We can work with this," and I believed her. He texted, "Lunch later?" At 10:11, like the night before had been an anecdote, not a line crossed in public. I said, "Busy." The phone rang within the minute. He started with, "Last night was just humor, babe," a sentence that erases both the insult and the audience. He moved quickly into the beat I expected. I've been helping a friend with her vows. She doesn't have anyone. I stepped in as a wordsmith. His voice rounded out the edges like he was cushioning a blow. I listened to the story he'd rehearsed more than the vows. When he said the friend's name, I did not flinch. Right, I said. You two sound good. There was a pause that widened like a crack that won't stop. What do you mean? He asked, and I let the silence work. What do you think I mean? I said. He tried another angle. You're reading too much into this. You always do? He put a smile into it, the way he does when he wants the world to believe him. I sent the first attachment while we were still on the phone, a short audio clip. His voice in my kitchen promising a woman who wasn't teamy to love her in public and in private as if he owned both. He heard himself and went quiet. The second attachment followed, a screenshot of the deposit at a venue we didn't book, 2 names I recognized only one of, a date that explained those work trips. The third, a credit card charge at a jeweler, the kind that sells rings that look a lot like lies. He inhaled sharply. He did not apologize. He said, You went through my accounts? As if the problem were not the truth, but the font. I said, I went through my life. He tried legal. This is slander, which is a word people who don't read definitions like to throw around. I said, if you'd like to loop in counsel, you should know I already have. Calm facts, no gloating. By afternoon, the spin machine spun. His mother called to tell me marriage is hard, which is not untrue and also not the point. His friend texted a paragraph about how men say things they done mean when they retrying to be funny. The someone else reached out in a DM. I did not see because I had turned everything off except what I needed to keep the ship pointed at the horizon. He sent me a page of bullet points that read like a brief, starting with, we can work this out privately, and ending with, this could ruin my promotion. I replied with 4 sentences that belong in a handbook. We will separate our finances today. My attorney will propose an equitable split by Friday. We will discuss living arrangements through counsel. Do not call me for anything but logistics. Reality is loud when you can prove it. His boss, who had been tagged in a photo from a client event that wasn't, untagged himself and asked some quiet questions that sounded like ethics and policy. The venue called to confirm the name change on the reservation and got me instead of him. But someone else's friend, who has better instincts, messaged me a screenshot of a string of texts where he'd named me. Complicated, which is a kind way to label someone who stopped covering for you. I printed what mattered and put it in a red folder because I like to keep important things from disappearing. The liar moved the way good lawyers do, efficiently, surgically, quietly. She sent a letter that sounded like a judge already nodded. Any further attempts to access joint funds without explicit written consent will be considered dissipation. All communication goes through counsel. Please preserve all digital correspondence. The words did not tremble. Neither did I. The first night away, the motel smelled like someone's old smoke, no matter how they tried to paint over it. I slept with the TV off and my phone on the nightstand face up like a guardian dog. Morning light came in hard and honest, and I sat on the edge of the bed and thought about the person I promised to be myself. I packed, I went home, and I changed the WA password. I labeled the box of his irreplaceables and put it in the hall where he'd have to see it before he reached for anything comfortable. I left the ring in the little dish by the sink because I didn't want to decorate a lie. We did it mostly through other people's inboxes. There was posturing and some bruised language that pretended to be about fairness. The settlement came back cleaner than I expected because numbers are less slippery than feelings. He kept the lease and the echo. I kept the savings I built and the car title. I moved into an apartment with too much light and not enough furniture. I slept diagonally for the first week just because I could. Peace makes time move differently. But someone else found out before the end. She sent me a short message that said, I didn't know, and while I didn't owe her anything, I believed her for the same reason I used to believe him. You want to. I didn't respond. It wasn't a door I needed to open. People will tell themselves better stories to stay warm. I had a new kind of heat. 3 months later, my hands stopped shaking when the doorbell rang. 6 months later, my laugh started arriving sooner than my suspicion. I learned to make dinner for one without feeling like I was practicing being lonely. A year out, I colored nothing in my calendar beige, and no one tried to make me. Friends came back in ones and twos with plants and steady company. I took a job that pays me for the competence I used to give away. My weekends developed an ease that doesn't need explaining. I saw him once in the kind of grocery store where the fruit looks better than your budget and everyone pretends not to recognize everyone. He was standing in front of the parsley debating flat or curly, like the answer could rewrite anything. He saw me and did the face he uses to get out of parking tickets. Hey, he said, a word that does a lot of lifting when you don't want to carry the rest. You look good. I nodded. The fluorescent lights hummed. The cartwheels squeaked like it was trying to mean something. He started to talk about how crazy it all was and what a misunderstanding feels like when you re-inside it. I didn't correct him. I didn't remind him of the way sound travels when you forget to hang up. I didn't do anything except what I promised myself I would do if this ever happened. Remain correct. Take care, I said, and the way his mouth settled told me care wasn't what he came for. He glanced at my left hand like he was owed a weather report. He opened his mouth and closed it again as if his words had grown heavier than his excuses. I smiled, not like I agreed, but like I recognized a chapter heading. Then I walked away into an aisle with dish soap and paper towels and a sale on the brand I like, and it felt like paying for exactly what I used. He texted once more a week after, an apology drafted by someone who thinks apologies take turns with the truth. I didn't respond. Some doors are quiet because they were never meant to slam. They were meant to close and stay closed. I changed the ringtone for unknown numbers to silence. I let the houseplant droop and replaced it with one that thrives on neglect. The ring dish by the sink holds my keys now. If you're listening for a moral, it's this. Humiliation in public can save you in private. There's a line people cross aloud so you don't have to translate their whisper. Open the folder, collect the facts, move like someone who owns the ground they stand on. And when closure arrives, don't confuse its softness with weakness. I don't do victory laps. I do deeds. And not the pasture, you're looking at the deed.